Now that the dust has settled at the U.S. House of Representatives, how will crypto policy be shaped this year? Joining us now to discuss is Clev Mesidor. She's the executive director of the Blockchain Association, or Foundation, pardon me, Clev. Welcome to the show. So, Kevin McCarthy is now officially the Speaker of the House. What does that mean for the crypto regulatory outlook of the year?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Well, it took a lot for Kevin McCarthy to become Speaker. And what will it mean for crypto? I don't know that it will mean much. I do think that what we saw was, a portion, a segment of the Republican Party fighting for political capital. And they're going to expand that political capital this Congress. And I don't think they're going to be doing it in crypto. But what I do think we have an opportunity for is for debate. The regulatory bodies are going to continue with regulation by enforcement, which will not be good for crypto. But what we need is a smart regulatory framework out of Congress. We need a legislative framework. And I don't see anything happening there. But I do see debate, right? I do see, members of Congress moving legislation. But let's be honest, we need more champions in Congress in order to actually even get one bill passed out of one body and another, and then going to conference and then getting signed by the president. But I think, this is not a bad sign for crypto.
Well, Clev, I'll say this. Kevin McCarthy received campaign donations from FTX co-founder Ryan Salame, $8,700 directly to his 2022 congressional campaign, and another $2 million to the Congressional Leadership Fund, which McCarthy controls. So according to the Federal Election Commission reports, but will he be, receptive to having crypto donations? Do you expect this to continue? Will he be more crypto friendly in an agenda going forward in Congress?
Well, it wasn't just him, right? How much did Biden get? How much did, Maxine Waters get? How much did, Elizabeth Warren get? The problem is there's a lot of exposure in Washington right now, not just for the speaker. And, will it actually translate into action? I do not think so. I think now they're trying to protect themselves, CYA, and you're going to see them do the total opposite. I think they're going to try to, be as far away from crypto or FTX as possible in terms of doing anything that would be seen as meaningful.
Well, I mean, from CYA to FBI, because the question, of course, is being brought up whether or not some of this might have even would potentially even be considered bribery if they're not careful. I mean, we don't quite know fully what was, this is a lot of money that was sloshing around from FTX. And obviously it now has to be investigated because it wasn't their money that they were giving away, it looks. Nonetheless, what happens then when, and should it be seen that maybe perhaps FTX was doing more than just, trying to advocate for good, decent, proper regulations, and it might have turned out to have been entirely self-serving, and that this money was expected for a type of quid pro quo. What happens to crypto then, and how are our lobbyists, crypto lobbyists, going to deal with this going forward when their biggest and most flush financial champion might have done something wrong when it comes to donating to politicians?
Are you feeling a chilling effect from lawmakers?
Actually, no more than usual, I would say. I think a lot of them are just, keeping their heads down. But it was chilly before FTX. But I will say on the FTX piece, I worked in Congress for 2 members. I served in the Obama administration. I've worked on national campaigns. Corporations, private sector, industry donating to campaigns is a normal thing. Whether you call it bribery or not, it's not legally bribery, right? When you look at Amazon and the amount of money they actually, put in campaigns to actually get policy, the issue here is more of the hypocrisy of the members, right? For them, so many of them are cool to crypto, but why weren't they cool to FTX, right? It's, there's that hypocrisy there. But I do think that what will happen for crypto now is you're going to see now that members of Congress cannot move policy or make decisions based on political campaign contributions. They have to open their doors to other players in crypto, other players that are focused on diversity, are focused on access to capital, who are focused on access for other aspects of the industry. So I think that was the biggest failure here. I don't think it was crypto's failure when it comes to at least the way that they were leveraging campaign contributions.
So putting aside the campaign contribution question for a moment, I mean, there definitely is this, I agree with you, like it was chilly before, but it definitely seems like a lot of politicians and lawmakers are like saying stuff, like they have to say stuff, right? They're like, this happened. They have to be like, this can never happen again. Like they have to say that, right? So, but the question is like, what do you do to prevent the next FTX? I mean, I've been sort of like, I mean, because FTX was not a US company, right? So, I mean, a lot of the things that I'm hearing people saying, being like, we need to do this, we need to do that. I'm like, okay, that's cool. You can do that, but that's not going to prevent the next FTX because FTX wasn't in the US to begin with, right? So like, is there anything tangible that's going to come out of this on the regulatory front?
Well, you know what? After Bernie Madoff, right? Did they do anything to stop that from? Did they put anything framework to stop that from happening? Because that's all SBF did, right? He just followed that playbook, right? Did after Enron's collapse, did the oil industry go away? I do think going back to what now, we have to start having different conversations, not just the industry, but also Washington as well. There's so much of a focus on store value, right? On how it affects the markets. Yes, we need to figure out, are cryptos securities or commodities, whether it's the CFTC or the SEC, but we also need to talk about, how do we grow this industry from an entrepreneurship perspective, from a small business perspective, right? How do we actually make sure people are trained? What are some of the other conversations we're going to have as we can no longer just focus on, we have a futures, ETF now. We need a Bitcoin spot ETF. Those conversations cannot suck up the room. We have an opportunity to force members of Congress to focus on a framework that can actually create a holistic industry that can survive future bear markets or ice ages that we're probably in right now.
And Clev, you have a report out at the Blockchain Foundation called Infusing Digital Assets and Jumpstarting Financial Literacy in America's K-12 Education System. What were some of your findings in there? What are some of the key takeaways?
Yeah, I think in one of your earlier segments, they talked about the future of the industry. The future of the industry is millennials and Gen Z. I think, the future generations, the framework we put together now, they will actually use it to foster adoption, commercialize the industry. So the white paper is really not focused on adoption, it's focused on accessibility. Right now, we have a trend where, about 23 states offer financial literacy courses, financial courses in their high schools. 17 mandate them in high school to graduate. Right? What does that mean? That means today, this year, about 23% of high school students will have access to personal finance education. But that means almost more than 75% of students should not. Irregardless, this trend is actually a positive sign. But digital assets is not part of the conversation. As we look at this environment of how do we mitigate risk, how do we empower consumers, financial literacy is the best way to do that. And as we're looking at this trend of more and more high schools, mandating financial literacy courses, we need to make sure digital assets is part of that curriculum, right? And how do we do that, right? Because what schools are doing right now, teaching the next generation about the future of commerce. And it can't just be about how do you balance a physical checkbook. Those principles are important, of course, but a physical checkbook is very different than a wallet or a fintech app. And we have to innovate to put K-12 students on a path to not just be better consumers, but also better heads of household.